my Cosmos with this, we did a live coding presentation through the foreign objects. I'm on the left and Cosmos is on the right, and you can see this recent event which we held in Troy. And so yeah, we do a lot of audio visual kind of expressions. I'm engaged in making sort of visual noise, and my colleague does sonic noise. And yeah, so there's a lot to think about in these topics. So the abstract that I wanted to gather here today was to sort of talk about what it means to think about noise, and you know, wanting to sort of subvert what that's all about. Sort of having some technical difficulties here, but so yeah, sorry. So yeah, noise has been long perceived as the force of disruption, dissonance, and rebellion, standing to resist against established norms. But my approach wants to take an alternative stance and contemplate a nuanced perception to sort of transcend its conventional characterization. So in this way, I want to challenge the teleological tendency to utilize noise as a agent of subversion and disruption. Really, I want to see it more as a form of freeing agent that allows us to even escape our own expectation. It is the way in which the unexpected can be perceived. This is how surprise can be seen in our lives, and how it can be perceived in artistic and even through nature. So before I was a pursuant artist, I was a scientist, and I studied astrophysics. And this is a image of the cosmic microwave background taken by the WMAP. And yeah, so this is what scientists refer to as the early signal of the universe, before the most recent telescope that's gone up, the James Webb Space Telescope, right? That will be able to see further than this once all of that investigation is complete. But this was the earliest baby picture of the universe that we could see. And earlier we heard of some anisotropies, and this is one direct evidential image of such anisotropies in the universe, sort of said to believe to what is given a structure, and so on and so forth. But before we arrived at all this insight and wondrous praise for science and visualization imaging, the cosmic microwave background was initially thought of as noise. They looked in all directions. They cleaned their instruments. They checked all of their electronics, and once they came to understand that this 2.7 Kelvin signal coming from the universe is actually something more than noise, they heralded it as a signal. And I want to begin to stop right there and understand why should we be so quick to, again, when we have something that we don't understand, we want to call it noise. And when we suddenly see that it's something corresponding to, again, an quote unquote actual source or something, then we can call it a signal. This is where I want to sort of problematize that, and yeah, sort of just really emphasize the questioning of what we're doing when we relabel something that's fundamental in nature as this. And so part of my practice is involving glitch art and sort of essentially we're breaking and messing around and playing with the innards of digital structures. And so this image here, this following image, is a date event image of the cosmic microwave background. And so yeah, in the Glitch Manifesto, Rosa Menkman likes to talk a lot about referring to glitch artifacts as noise artifacts, and using noise artifacts as a way to sort of, again, like subvert and to bring alternative narratives to whatever it is we would like to think about or talk about. And so again, even though this is like clearly like a very good motivation in an artistic sense, it is still attaching noise to a teleology. It's trying to make use of it. And part of my early hopes in sort of in a Kantian lane is to emphasize the beauty of it and to not make use of things. It doesn't have to have use in order to be particularly interesting or special. And so sort of my diagrammic approach to thinking about noise and these issues is to think about sort of my interest topics of glitch, remix, and serendipity. Glitch is often associated with noise and can be, but it can also be a sort of functional response in systems. Serendipity is also like has a very similar definition to glitch, surprisingly enough. It's often associated with the unexpected and how unexpected things occur, either through interactions or through encounters in systems or explorations. Remix and remix is also kind of connected in all of these and entangled, especially by playing with and juxtaposing various elements to reach new configurations, to reach new outcomes. And in these new outcomes, you can find, again, surprise. And I am going to play with the concept of how can noise affect like how we perceive a remix, and how does, all of these things sort of affect how we are perceiving and receiving things either from nature and art. Sort of the big insights that I sort of come to arrive at is that, what we think of as noise depends on the relationship of some hegemonic thinking, some sort of domineering thought, and that's sort of like how, the cosmic microwave background was initially thought of as noise. Furthermore, what we think of as noise is relative to our knowledge. And so when we, again, sort of don't understand sort of like the functional responses or sort of like the expressions that we are receiving, we sort of tend to relegate or tend to like think something is less important or not as information. So we would consider it noise. So it, again, tends to think of, well, how are we privileging signal as a form of discovery? If change is not perceivable in a thing, could it still be considered remix? And then like, what is noise beyond its, again, this typical aspect of utilizing noise as a sort of subversion of normative values? These are things that, of course, not answered. These are things to continue to think about. Part of one of my earliest examples of finding discovery in my image experiments was applying anisotropic diffusion to images. And so on the top right, you see how the image has been processed only through a standard enlargement algorithm. There's no diffusion. On the bottom right, you see that the image is processed. And I did a zoom in on this thing because like if I were to leave it sort of at just the same scale, like you would not be able to tell the difference between them. And that's sort of like the aspect of what this gets at, is that when we are injecting noise or when we are doing some more kind of subtle processes like anisotropic diffusion, you would not be able to actually tell the difference between them. And yet they are not exactly the same. So when we have new configurations and new expressions of things, even if they, to our eyes, they're not perceivably different, are they not still something that has changed? Are they not yet something that has been remixed? And so one of the main differences to show here is that when I approach them with the same technique of data bending, they have starkly contrasting results. On the left was the one that was not processed with anisotropic diffusion, and the one on the right is. And so this is, I use this in a publication, I use this in talks to sort of illustrate this incredible example of how I found surprise in doing these experiments digitally. yeah, to show like there's actually something in the computer, the computers can actually perceive these very subtle differences, and you can see their functional responses when you approach them consistently and through these interactions, which are often referred to as data bending. And then in the write-up that we did for this residency, I sort of injected noise, various forms of noise into the imagery. If I could remember which one is which. Yeah, on the top row, the top row is Gaussian noise. The second row is salt and pepper noise, and then the bottom row is HSV noise, and sort of shows like the increasing amount of noise as the sort of experiment is carried out. And sort of to again illustrate, you could sort of tell on the very early examples, like where the noise is more prominent, but in the top and the bottom row, it's still very subtle. You can't really tell that noise is being injected. And then by the time you get to the later iterations, you can definitely tell that you could say that the noise is overtaking the imagery, and this sort of what would probably be referred to as distortion, or like being able to prevent someone from seeing what it is that you're saying or doing. And that's sort of like one of the interesting examples in art. The concept of defamiliarization is to like make something unrecognizable, so that you cause people to like really think about what it is that what it is at issue. And for me, I want to actually do that with noise. I don't want to use sort of subvert people's like normative standards. I actually kind of want to subvert even like the artist's standards, and I want to make them think about like why noise should even be used that way. I want to make noise free, and this is why we engage in playful remix of live coding, making crazy films, and also playing with AI stuff these days. But I think that'll wrap it up for my talk for now. Thanks for